Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sandra Saldana Ortega, and I'm a co-founder of Alva Health. And we are a team of experts with backgrounds in stroke neurology, electrical and computer engineering, and business. And we are on a journey to revolutionize access to stroke therapy by building a simple, wearable medical device that can be worn by patients with the highest risk of stroke. The genesis for this venture came about when our clinical co-founder, Dr. Kevin Sheth, was a fellow at Mass General Hospital up in Boston. And he found that oftentimes he would get a call from the emergency department, and the number one question was, can we give this patient TPA? And overwhelmingly, a majority of the time, the answer was no. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with stroke, ischemic stroke happens when there's a blood clot that blocks blood flow to the brain. And the only FDA-approved therapy for this disease is TPA. And unfortunately, it must be administered within a time window of 3 to 4.5 hours after the onset of symptoms in order to be effective. And so a majority of the patients arriving at the emergency department actually are too late. They're far out of that window. And so Dr. Sheth set out to come up with a solution to solve this problem. And today I'm going to share with you our solution, which is a wearable monitor that is powered by a powerful algorithm in a machine learning algorithm that can detect symptoms of stroke as they happen. And now the reason that this is such a big problem is that we really don't have any methods for detecting stroke in the everyday setting. In fact, only about 30% of the general population is aware of the symptoms of stroke, which include face drooping, arm weakness, and speech difficulty. And so this is a really big problem because because ischemic stroke affects over 800,000 patients every year in the U.S., which results in over $33 billion in cost to the healthcare system when these patients don't get treated. And so there's a saying in the field that time is brain. So out of this $33 billion in healthcare costs, we determined that about $2 to $4 billion is accounted for by what we call recurrent 90-day strokes. And so these are strokes that happen within the 90-day window after a patient is released after their initial event, either a stroke or a mini stroke. And we find that actually in this population, they are overwhelmingly more likely to be either Hispanic or Black. And so not only that, but these patients have worse outcomes overall, and they have a greater need for rehab. And even though they need more help, unfortunately, they're more likely to be sent home without any sort of monitoring. So there's really a very specific need that these patients have to have a solution like the one we're proposing here. And again, so the solution essentially is wearable sensors that are worn on the body, and they detect paralysis in half of the body. So this is linked to an iPhone application, which is powered by an algorithm that is housed in the cloud. And this machine learning algorithm essentially can tell when somebody is having a stroke in real time. And this is where we are today. On the left-hand side, you can see a mock-up of our prototype, which has enabled us to validate our algorithm and determine that we're actually able to differentiate normal versus stroke subjects. We're in the process of transitioning over into the second generation, which is going to be using off-the-shelf sensors and components. And in the next couple of 2 to 3 years, we are working with potential partners. We're in conversations with IBM to help us co-develop this device into a commercial-grade device that can be cleared by the FDA. And this is an example of the diffusion maps that we're able to capture with our algorithm. Now I know that this looks simple, but it's a two-dimensional representation of really an environment of each patient as they're moving about throughout their day. So this is just one of the metrics that we're measuring. And on the left-hand side, you see that the left arm and the right arm are quite symmetrical in a normal subject, but in a stroke patient, as you can see, there's a very dramatic difference when somebody suffers a neurological insult, and the left arm seems to be completely paralyzed, while the right arm, we still are able to capture some of that deficit. So the value proposition that we're looking at is really threefold. For patients, it's very clear. These patients they're debilitated. They're leaving the hospital with a stroke. they don't want to worry about a second stroke. They want to focus on recovering. And so we're going to be there to have their back. We're going to help them to watch their back and make sure that they can get to the hospital in the case of a secondary event. For providers, this tool will enable them to use the drugs and therapies that are at their disposal so that they can actually treat the patients within the time window that they have so they can help them. And for payers, there's a very significant cost savings that results when patients are able to get treatment. So we have shorter hospital stays, less time in the rehab setting, and then less need for long-term care. And so we're aware that there are a lot of players entering the healthcare wearables market, but a grand majority of them are actually entering the low-hanging fruit. So they're going after wellness or general fitness indications, and very few are actually going after medical indications, and even fewer are going into the cardiovascular space, and that's where we play a role. And I just want to point out that there are a couple players, but these guys are measuring EKG monitoring, which detects heart arrhythmias, which may someday turn into a stroke, but maybe not. So we are the only group that is actually tackling stroke head-on as it happens in the real-time setting. So we did an analysis of existing cardiovascular monitoring devices, and we think that we can charge about $1,000 per device using off-the-shelf components. And we did an analysis of the unit economics, and we think that this field is actually rapidly turning into a commoditized market. So the suppliers in this space their prices are getting cheaper, and they're getting faster and better overall. And so we think we're going to have very favorable unit economics overall. And we found that the real value for our technology is actually in the algorithm and being able to detect stroke. And that's really what we're focusing on, creating that gold standard data set for stroke. And this is a snapshot of our projected revenues over the next few years. We'll have a product out on the market within 2 to 3 years. And we hope to leverage Dr. Schett's relationships and understandings of the local market and launch our product at Yale New Haven Hospital, and then move up and down the East Coast and eventually down to the stroke belt, which is the southeastern United States, which extends from Texas all the way to Florida, which is where our needy population, so those Hispanics and African Americans, that's where the highest concentration of stroke actually occurs. So some of our recent success, we have a non-provisional patent for our technology. We have a proof of concept study that has proven our powerful machine learning algorithm. This has resulted in some awards locally across campus, including the YEI Summer Fellowship this summer, which we're excited to be a part of. And not only that, but we've been able to generate external support and excitement and interest from potential partners, including IBM and Smart Monitor. So this is our team. My name is Sandra Saldana Ortega, and I am the CEO. Dr. Kevin Scheth is the Chief Medical Officer. He oversees over 3,000 stroke admissions at Yale New Haven Hospital every year. Dr. Hiten Saveri is our CTO. He is an expert in electrical engineering who was developing our technology. Dr. Ron Koifman is our machine learning expert who has developed this powerful algorithm. And Dr. Susan Froschauer has been our business mentor throughout the process, and she played a key role in bringing our team together. And at this point, I'd like to open it up to some questions.